Welcome and thank you for standing by. At this time, all participants will be on a listen-only mode until the question and answer portion. If at that time you would like to ask a question, press star 1. Today's conference is also being recorded. If you have any objections, please disconnect at this time. And now I'd like to call over to your host today, to Ms. Erlene Dowell. Your line is open.
Thank you, Melissa. Good afternoon, and thank you to Lisa Glover West from the U.S. Census Bureau for hosting this webinar. In light of the recent transition to 100% telework, we are utilizing technology off-site to continue operations. We aim to minimize interruptions as much as possible, but we appreciate your patience if we experience any technical delays. Please utilize the chat feature to notify us of issues should any arise, and we will do our best to address them. All webinars and Q&A sessions are recorded and will be accessible from the Census Academy's webinar tab once the recording and transcripts are available. Please go to www.census.gov/academy. And thank you for your continued support for our outreach and education efforts. On behalf of the U.S. Census Bureau, welcome to the 2017 Economic Census Webinar Series. There are 20 webinars in this series that are broken down into 2 basic formats. One set of the webinars will be structured around the geographies or individual states. The second set of webinars will be structured around the North American Industry Classification System, or also known as the NAICS sectors. If you are a regular to these webinars, you may have noticed that I am not Andy Haight. My name is Erlene Dowell, and I am a program analyst at the U.S. Census Bureau. However, not to worry, because he is here on this call and is going to help answer your questions. You can also tune in on Thursday, April 23rd at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time when Andy presents economic census updates and on real estate and rental and leasing. Today's webinar will cover 2017 economic census data released for D.C., Delaware, New Jersey, New York, and Pennsylvania. Here is the latest agenda for the 2017 Economic Webinar Series and what's to come. U.S. stats are from the First Look report. We conduct more than 130 different monthly, quarterly, and annual census surveys every single year, beginning with the decennial census, which is mandated by the Constitution and is conducted every 10 years to count every person living in the United States and the 5 U.S. territories. By now, many of you have probably received a letter from the Census Bureau directing you to fill out your 2020 census online, by phone, or mail. If you have any questions, go to 2020census.gov. The next survey listed is the American Community Survey, or the ACS. The ACS took the place of the decennial census long form. This is ongoing, an annual survey, and gives detailed demographic, socioeconomics, and housing data. In addition to these demographic surveys, we also conduct a number of business programs. Every 5 years, Census conducts a census of governments, which identifies the scope and nature of the nation, state, and local government sector. This census provides reliable benchmark figures of public finance and public employment, for example, payroll, total employees, and finances of government. And finally, the economic census is conducted every 5 years and collects extensive statistics about business that is essential to understanding the American economy. The U.S. Census Bureau's mission is to serve as the leading provider of quality data on the U.S. people and economy. There are 58 different business surveys. This pyramid gives you a visual of the hierarchy of the different economic programs. At the top are our monthly and quarterly surveys. Every month we conduct 17 out of 22 economic indicator surveys. They include programs like the monthly retail trade survey, which provides monthly estimates on sales and inventories at retail or food services stores. These surveys are very timely but highly aggregated when it comes to the level of geography, which is only shown at the national level. Moving down the pyramid, we come to the annual surveys, which include the popular annual business survey, the annual survey of manufacturers, and the annual retail trade survey, to name a few. The brand new annual business survey provides information on selected economic and demographic characteristics for businesses and business owners and will be released this month. These annual surveys are more detailed than what are available in the monthly and quarterly surveys. They include information not only at the national level, but they even include data down to the state, metropolitan area, and even county level. Annual surveys tend to provide up-to-date trends to forecast future demands. At the base of the pyramid is the economic census that is conducted every 5 years on every employer businesses in the U.S. There are about 8 million employer businesses. The economic census is the most detailed and comprehensive economic program. It covers almost every 2 through 6 digit codes covered by the Census Bureau. These codes are known as the North American Industry Classification System, or NAICS code. A link of a full list of exclusions is provided. One exclusion is that we do not publish data for agriculture, which is published by the Department of Agriculture since 1997. The economic census also provides detailed geographic information at the national, state, metropolitan area, and even county levels. We are publishing place levels for some sectors, but there have been some adjustments, which we'll talk about later. The economic census also publishes other dimensions of data broken out by business size. There are 4 different dimensions that are available: employment size, revenue size, total number of establishments, and by company size. Just as a sidebar, the revenue data is unique to the economic census. Other programs do not publish revenue data at all. We also publish data by franchise or non-franchise owners. What makes the economic census so detailed is that it includes over 200 data variables, such as number of establishments, employment totals, or payroll. The economic census also publishes the product line data. Product lines are the detailed products and services provided by businesses and tailored to the individual industry. Finally, on this slide, where can we find the data? But now, hopefully, you all know that the American Fact Finder has since retired. Now, the availability of economic census can be found on Census's new platform, data.census.gov, Census Business Builder, and other census tools. So how will the 2017 economic census data products be released? Data first started to be released back in September of 2019 with the first look estimates that provided national level estimates at the 2 through 6 digit NAICS code, and we will release the last data product, as you can see on this screen, around September 2021. Now let's look at the geographical area statistics, or GAS release, and its resources, which you have to admit sounds funny. The link at the top of the slide will take you to the page of what's been released and the upcoming releases in the next 30 days. We strongly encourage you to check it out. When you go to the URL that is provided here, you get 3 pieces of information. At the very top, you get a link to an Excel file that tells you in a tabular format what has been released. Just below, you have upcoming releases that tells you what are the data products that are going to be released in the next 30 days. On the actual web page, in between the what has been released and upcoming release, is this great infographic, which is also on the right side of this slide. This cool infographic shows you the states that have been released. Each state is represented by an octagon, and when that data is released, the inside of the octagon is shaded peach. Let's go live. So once I'm here, I can show you that this infographic is very detailed and very intuitive. So as you can see, there's an area that is numbered 1, where you can select a sector from this menu. If I just use the arrow and arrow down, you can see all of the different sectors that you can choose from. I'm just going to keep it at the all. The other way is where it says number 2, where you can hover over a state and then you can access the state's sector data. So we're going to go ahead and hover over Delaware. And as you can see, there's a list of sectors that have been released. I'm going to go ahead and jump to the click here for a list of releases. Once I do that, it takes us straight to data.census.gov. Here, you can see a summary of all of Delaware and the different sectors. I'm a map girl, so I like to click on up at the top left-hand corner where it says Maps. I'll click on that. And then as you can see, it zooms right into Delaware. And Andy says that everybody always comes up to him and asks him information about counties. So I'm just going to scroll over to where it says State, and I'm going to hit on the arrow. And there you can go ahead and select region, division, state, metropolitan areas, and there you are, county, subdivision, and place. Be sure to go there and check it out and have some fun on that infographic. When we think about changes from the economic census, they can be grouped into 4 broad categories. The first are geography area changes. Compared to the 2012 economic census, the 2017 census no longer has zip code data, but there is still zip code data in the zip code business patterns. Also, there is no place data for manufacturing due to the privacy rules. For example, Tennessee has several automobile manufacturers. If you know that factory was in Smyrna, then Spring Hill, you could figure out how much each manufacturer was paying their employees. There were also changes in the NAICS codes that we will go over in a bit. As I mentioned earlier, regarding the product line data tables are now being replaced by the new North American Product Classification, or NAIPS system, in 2017 economic census. NAIPS are product codes that census publishers as part of the economic census. Under this new classification system, products are now going to be published consistently across their different sectors. So what that will allow users to do is hopefully allow them to more easily combine products data across industries. For another example, let's say you were interested in shoes and you wanted to get information on shoe manufacturers, shoe wholesalers, shoe stores, and shoe repair. Those would be 4 completely different industries that would have historically had 4 very different ways of publishing the product data for those 4 different industries. Under NAIPS, now that shoe data will be more consistently displayed. Be sure to check out the link on the bottom of the slide to learn more. Other changes include new disclosure rules and, of course, the new data.census.gov distribution platform. Beginning with DC, there is no metro changes and no economic place changes. Geographical area changes affect businesses, which affects people. Another example, previously Andy presented on the state of Hawaii. One of the added places for Honolulu County is Ko'olina CDP. In 2012, Ko'olina was just 4 lagoons that made up resort living. Now in 2017, has moved in with its new hotel. Along with that came more restaurants, spas, and retail stores. Be sure to check out the 2 links provided for more information. Geographical area changes for Delaware include 20 economic place changes, with 14 places with area gains, such as Dover, as you can see in the table to the right, showing comparisons of 2017 versus 2012. There were 3 area losses, such as Kent County, 0 places with a name change, 3 new places added, and 0 places dropped. In New Jersey, there were no metro changes, but there were 480 economic place changes. This is the largest area change out of the 5 states we are covering, with 229 area gains, including Ashbury Park. There are 248 lost, including Cherry Hill, 0 places with name changes, 2 new places. And on the chart, you can see that Woodbine Borough is a new place within Cape May County, and Lower Alloway Creek Township was added to Salem County. And then there were 2 drop places. Let's click on the link in the right-hand corner to show you how easy it is to get more information on New Jersey. So once I'm here on the Geographies page, you just scroll down to where it says Change Notes. Click on Change Notes. Once there, you can scroll down and you can see a list of all the states. And I'm going to go ahead and click on New Jersey. Here you can see New Jersey Geographic Change Notes, and then we're going to go under 2017 and click Boundary Changes to Economic Places between 2012 and 2017. I'll open up this Excel sheet. And here you can see the exact table that was on the PowerPoint presentation. Going on to New York. In New York, there are no metro changes, but there are 180 economic place changes. There are 67 area place gains, including Rice City, and 79 area place loss, such as Ossing City. There are 9 places with name changes, 25 new places as shown in this table, and 14 drop places. Finally, in Pennsylvania, there is a new St. Mary's Micropolitan Statistical Area. There are 145 economic place changes with 53 places of area gain, including the brotherly love city of Philadelphia, and 68 places with area loss, such as the State College Borough. 21 new added places as shown in the table, and 6 drop places. Again, this is just an overview of geographical area changes. Be sure to check out the link in the right-hand corner for more details, along with the link on the bottom for the Tiger Web Geo. As mentioned before, NAICS, or the North American Industry Classification System, is a system that we use to classify every single business in the United States. Census assigns the NAICS code to the business based upon their primary activity. The next 2 slides will highlight the changes in 2017 economic census. NAICS was developed by OMB, or the Office of Management and Budget, Statistics Canada, and Mexico State Stats Agency. This was done to ensure that there was comparability across the North American counties. NAICS was adapted in 1997 and is updated every 5 years. Types of changes include one-to-one recode, which means there are no changes, but it has been recoded. Many-to-one combos, which is 3 or 4 codes combined into one. Many-to-many, and one-to-splitters, which has no changes in 2017, but there were a few in 2012. For example, in 2012, the electric power generation code was split into solar electric and solar farm. We'll cover these types of changes in the next slides, and note the color codes will mirror the upcoming tables. Let's go over a couple NAICS changes. The first one on the list is mining. The peach tables are codes where there's been some kind of partial shift or many-to-many, as on previous slides. So if you notice, we've changed the way crude, petroleum, and natural gas extraction is classified now to crude petroleum extraction and changed the code. We also merged natural gas extraction and natural liquid gas extraction to just natural gas extraction. Manufacturing also had a few changes. The green highlighted tables are combinations or many-to-one. These are cases where we used to publish data broken out into certain mixtures, but we've now consolidated those codes into one particular code. The biggest reason for this happens is because of industry decline or because of industry consolidation. So let me give you a specific example. On the right-hand side, you can see an area of household cooking appliances, household refrigeration or refrigerator and home freezer manufacturers, household laundry equipment, and other major household appliance manufacturers. Those four industries have now been consolidated into a single NAICS code for the 2017 economic census, primarily because of the number of companies in the United States that make these four types of appliances has declined to such an extent that there are now not enough businesses in each of those industries to allow us to publish the detailed information. Remember, the Census Bureau is committed to the privacy of the businesses who respond to our surveys. So if you have a relatively small number of businesses making a particular product or selling a particular product in an area, we couldn't publish that data because doing so would disclose their identity. Next on the list is retail trade. An example of one-to-one recoding appears blue on the table. All other general merchandise stores change from 452990 code to 452319 code. What's interesting to see in the green table of many to one, which includes electronic shopping such as Amazon, electronic auction like eBay, and mail order houses like Publishers Clearinghouse are all combined under electronic shopping and mail order houses now. Other changes include information, real estate and rental and leasing, and professional, scientific, and technical services. The blue tables are cases where it's simply a recode, meaning content of that industry has not changed at all, but the code that we classify it under has. Again, this is so important when you're using these data because you want to make sure that you're pulling the data from the correct industry. For professional, scientific, and technical services, this is the only sector that has had a truly brand new, never published before kind of code, and that is for research and development in nanotechnology. So the primary places to access this data will be data.census.gov, but we can also find them in the economic census in Quick Facts on the Census homepage and in the Census Business Builder. With the 2017 economic census, we are also releasing some fun facts on social media and other platforms. These are the fun facts that we release for the 5 states we've been talking about. Each state is represented by that state's quarter. Delaware facts list total sales of $177 billion in 2017. That's incredible, but everyone knows there's no sales tax, so people are probably crossing borders to go shopping. Also on this slide, there are links to the fun facts along with an America Count story above. The key data variables we release in the economic census are sales, shipments, receipts, revenues, or business done. So these 2 charts show you data that we have available for the District of Columbia. As you can see, professional, scientific, and technology services have the highest revenue in DC in 2017. In comparing it to the other table, which is a change from 2012 to 2017, is a $5 million change. Note on the bottom of the slide that revenue data is not available at the state level for utilities, information, and finance and insurance sectors. In Delaware, you can see what's more typical for most states are revenues in wholesale trade and retail trade as leading industries. As we talked earlier about no taxes in Delaware and outlet malls. In 2017, values of sales, shipments, receipts, revenues, or business done was nearly $22 million in wholesale trade. However, on the other table in retail trade, the change from 2012 to 2017 was more than $3 million. In the state of New Jersey, we see wholesale trade as the leading industry with $463 million plus, and almost a $56.5 million change between the two economic censuses under wholesale trade. New Jersey has many Fortune 500 businesses, plus it is easy access being so close to New York. New York's leading industry is also wholesale trade, and the change of retail between 2012 and 2017 is about $40.5 million. Finally, the state of Pennsylvania wholesale trade also leads in revenues in 2017, and the change between 2012 and 2017 for retail is an increase of $56 million. What's coming next? As we discussed, the North American Product Classification System that will be taking the place of the product lines will be available in November 2020. The way mining, manufacturing, construction used to be published has also changed in the 2017 and now is more consistent and hopefully easier to combine product data across industries. Check out the link in the lower right corner of this slide for guidance. A few other changes you should be aware of, such as establishments and firm sizes, which will be released between November 2020 through September 2021. Data will be consolidated into 7 tables, such as revenue size of establishments, employment size of establishments, revenue size of firms, unemployment size, or employment size of firms, to name a few. A full list is included to the right of this screen. Finally, miscellaneous subjects table. There will be 38 tables dropped and 7 tables added. Changes include items discussed earlier, like zip code level data and no place level manufacturing data, and consolidations of class of customer, enterprise support, and exported services. In summary, here's a list of helpful links regarding the economic census, flow basis, and what's to come up until August 2020, geography changes, new NAICS code, and of course, data.census.gov. With that, I thank all of you for spending your afternoon with me, and Andy and I and our colleague Linda Lee are ready to take your questions.
Hi, Arlene. While we're waiting, let's take a few questions from our chat feature. So we have received a question, and our first question is, do you have granular information about average salary by physician types?
Okay, Linda, this is Andy Haight. I'll go ahead and take that question. The person who asked that question is probably talking about individual occupations for physicians. And so the short answer to that question is no. In our economic programs, we do publish information on employment and payroll by industry. So we would be able to look at average annual payroll per employee for physicians' offices or for therapists or for different types of business. But the occupations themselves, the detailed data available for occupations, wouldn't be available in our economic programs. However, those occupation type data are available in the American Community Survey that Arlene talked about early in the presentation. And the Bureau of Labor Statistics also has detailed occupation data. So if you're interested in sort of wages and salaries on an occupation basis, the ACS and the Bureau of Labor Statistics would be your best sources.
Thank you, Andy. We have another question, and it is, why does it take so long for the data to become available? We are looking at 2017 data instead of 2019. And when will 2019 data become available?
Great. So this is Andy again. As you can probably guess, we can't begin to collect data for the economic census for 2017 until after the calendar year is done. That is very true for all of our economic programs. So monthly data for the month of March can't begin until the beginning of April, because businesses need to be able to report their complete data. We would have started collection of data from the 2017 economic census in January or February of 2018, but we had some substantial budget issues in 2018, and we ended up having to delay the mail out by almost 6 months. Then once we began to collect the data, we had the government shutdown, which further impacted our release. So right now, we're running about 9 months behind when we normally would have had that data available. But again, just as a reminder to everybody, we don't publish detailed data for a given period until that period is completed.
Thank you, Andy. At this moment, we do not have additional questions from the chat feature. Let's check in with our operator for questions from our phone lines.
Thank you. At this time, if you would like to ask a question, please press star 1 and record your name. Again, at this time, to ask a verbal question, please press star 1. One moment for questions. In 1 moment. All right, your first question comes from Mike Allen. Your line is open.
Hi. I've seen some videos that are very helpful in how to manipulate data from a census. I was wondering if you have one specifically that details how to use the downloads, I think with labels appended, or I forget, with overlays, to manipulate them in Excel more readily to kind of have a cascading selection down. I'm sure you use some utility to do that, and I just wondered if a video could be made or if there were some advice you could give here and now.
Yeah, great question. So again, this is Andy Haight. As you probably already figured out, we do have a number of training videos on our different websites that are tool-specific, that show how to use the download features, for example, in our new data.census.gov platform. We have videos and tutorial flyers on how to use the download features in our Census Business Builder data tool and a variety of other tools. But the tutorial information we typically provide in those videos talks more generically about how to use the data that we provide. We don't usually provide specific guidance on how to use individual applications like Excel. So some of the sort of detailed guidance that you're talking about in learning how to manipulate that table once you bring it down in Excel. Some of that information, we do have a little bit of it, but normally what we would do is refer our users to some of the videos that are available on the Microsoft website or certainly in YouTube to learn how to do some of those more advanced transposition type features, things like that. We try to not provide too much proprietary software-specific instructions, because in some respects that's almost a recommendation, if you will, from the federal government to use a particular application, and we're not really allowed or supposed to actually provide that kind of guidance. But we do have a little bit of it in some of the flyers and other materials we have that are tool-specific. For example, our new data.census.gov platform has dozens of tutorial videos that have been recorded. They call them our data gems, that provide guidance on how to use the 3 or 4 different ways of downloading data in data.census.gov. So hopefully that answered your question.
It does. Thank you very much.
And this is Erlene. I'd also like to direct you to the Census Academy. That has a list of different tutorials that you can use, not just for the economic census, but also for all of the other census data tools.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you. The next question, I believe, it was hard to hear, but I don't know if Roy was your first name or last name. But sir, your line is open.
Okay, this is Mrinmoy Roy, and good afternoon. This is Mrinmoy Roy from California. I was a little curious about the data which will be collected And what is the cutoff date after which we start counting the data? Like there should be a cutoff date by which we say, okay, this is the data that we have received and this is the cutoff date, and we start counting from here. So is there something like that you have a data collection cutoff date?
So this is Andy Haight again. The cutoff that you talk about does vary widely from program to program. So let me give you a couple of examples. Erlene talked about the monthly and quarterly surveys that we conduct at the Census Bureau. Obviously, in a very, very timely survey, like a monthly survey, the amount of days that we give the business to receive, to complete, and to submit their form is substantially less than what we would be giving a business who's filling out a quarterly survey or an annual survey. For example, on the monthly surveys, it's a 28-day turnaround. So from when that period, let's say that particular month ends, we start the clock and we begin to do the mail out. We get the forms out to the businesses, either in paper or electronic format, and we give them a total of 28 days to respond to the survey. If they have not responded in time, we attempt to follow up with them and hopefully get the information if they've not provided it. And if after that period of time has been elapsed, then we will do one of a variety of things to essentially impute, if you will, the data for that business. The quarterly surveys, similarly, you have about a 3-month turnaround time to complete a quarterly survey. And on the economic census, when we mailed the economic census form, the due date was 3 months after the mail out, but we actually gave businesses almost 9 months to complete their economic census form. The biggest reason why we gave them so much time is because all of those monthly, or nearly all of those monthly, quarterly, and annual programs that we conduct at the Census Bureau are baselined and benchmarked back to the big economic census that we do. So if we don't get a good measure of all of the employer businesses in the United States as part of the economic census, then each of those monthly and quarterly and annual programs that are benchmarked back to that economic census would be impacted. So we try to give them a little bit more time. We work with the businesses a bit more, if you will, to make sure that we're collecting the data from them. Because again, timeliness, if you will, of our economic census is not the most important thing. It's the accuracy of the data so that those other more timely surveys, like the monthlies and quarterlies and annuals, are allowed to be more timely and more accurate.
Great. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
And once again, if you would like to ask a question, please press star 1 and record your name. 1 moment for questions. And at this time, I'm not showing any audio questions.
Great. Are there any questions on the chat, Linda?
Hi, Erlene. So I have been answering the questions directly in the chat, and there is one more question that I have not answered yet, and it is a question on, so is the economic census, does it not follow the federal calendar?
So, Linda, this is Andy. If by federal calendar the person who entered the question is referring to our fiscal year calendar, the short answer is no, it doesn't. The federal fiscal year is an October 1 to September 30 calendar. Nearly all of our business surveys follow a traditional calendar. So the monthly data are available for the first of the month to the last day of the month. The quarterly surveys follow first quarter, second quarter, third quarter, and fourth quarter using the normal calendar. And our annual programs follow a calendar January 1 to December 31st. That publishing data and collecting data on a calendar year basis, for example, does create some challenges for our businesses because many of them are operating on their own fiscal year basis, and we are asking them to report annual data following a traditional January 1 to December 31st calendar when they may be following a July 1 to June 30 fiscal year calendar. But we have to basically follow a single standardized calendar because businesses don't follow standardized fiscal years. And if you were trying to publish comprehensive comparable data across the nation, across all types of businesses, and you didn't adjust for a single classification, calendar classification, the data would not be consistent across those businesses. So we do require businesses to report to us following a traditional January 1st to December 31st calendar. Yeah, that's a great question. I actually have not had that question in a long time. So whoever asked it, very great question.
And at this time, we do not have any additional questions from the chat feature.
And excuse me, we do have a question then on the audio side. Oh, well, never mind. They removed themselves from the queue. At this time, no questions here on the audio side, ma'am.
Okay, great. Well, I would just like to take this time again to thank everyone for joining us this afternoon. Thank you, Andy, and thank you, Linda, and for helping out with the questions. And I would just like to recommend that everybody come back. Next week, we are featuring the states Maryland, Virginia, and West Virginia on April 21st. That's a Tuesday at 2 p.m. And then on Thursday, as I mentioned earlier, Andy will be presenting real estate and rental and leasing on the 23rd at 2 p.m. With that, I wish everybody a wonderful afternoon, and please stay healthy and safe.
Thank you, and this does conclude today's conference. All parties may disconnect.